Hello, welcome, Cabbage here. In War of the Visions JP, let's have a look at some random runs in Arena. There is a lot of Cloud in here, but this is not technically a Cloud hunting video. I'm still trying to crack that nut. But this, these random Arena fights can serve as a good launching pad for me to talk about team building, and then also priorities in team building, maybe how high of a priority elements should be in there. And then in these fights, I want maybe folks to focus more on the enemy teams rather than my team. But my team here, this was from last week. This is kind of Cloud hunting with the 2 Earth characters. But the team that I'm going against, role-wise, is very strong. We have King Mont here as a physical tank. We have Cloud as the physical attacker. And then 9S is kind of like a sub-attacker support character. And then when I do team building, that's the thing that I put the highest priority on, is roles of the party. And there are some kind of like some classic team compositions like attacker, tank, healer. You could do like bruiser, bruiser, healer, evade, evade, attacker, stuff like that. And so yeah, this team that I'm going against, I knew I was going to have trouble. I do have Kirufe, who is a source of magic attack, but Mont and Muraga probably not going to do a ton of damage, just because of the way that the enemy team is built, and it's got nothing to do with elements. My Muraga will have the element advantage on 2 of the characters, but I still wasn't very confident going into this battle. But my Mont there, he was hit with the typeless attack from 9S, that did a lot of damage. And then he was also hit with like defense breaks and slash resist breaks, which is another thing that can kind of overcome element disadvantage. Alright, so that's pretty good damage on my Muraga, despite Cloud having the element disadvantage. And in Global, they are very much focusing on mono-element teams in PvP. And I kind of blame myself to a degree, because like 4 or 5 months ago I did put up a couple Arena videos where I tried out mono-element teams. I made a point to say very early in the video that mono-element teams are not necessary or even that strong in PvP and JP. I was just messing around. But people often misinterpret the findings from my videos, so I am partly to blame for what's going on. Alright, but there goes my team. That was a well-built team that I went against. Okay, next we have Cloud and Charlotte and Dwayne. This was another team that I was not very optimistic about going against, but I went in there just to see what would happen. And then Charlotte, she's really good against my team because she can block those magic attacks. Again, has nothing to do with her element. It's more about her role as a magic tank. And then the team that we're fighting, it's probably more geared to go against magic users. Their Dwayne is probably more built for attack rather than tanking. But then Dwayne, he is so kind of well-rounded, he's so kind of good at everything that you can kind of put him into any team and he'll do well. He's a pretty easy character to use, I would say. But Dwayne kind of brings up a good point. For a while in JP there was the quote-unquote dark meta. You could even argue that it's still going on. But like you got like Dwayne and Garble and Helena, and they were really the centerpieces for the dark meta. But I think it had less to do with them being dark element and more to do with them just being really good characters. Like you could use any of them in like any element party and still get really good results. And then like Garble, Dwayne, and Helena, they could have been different elements. They could have been like even different from each other and still perform really well. Probably would have led the meta. So yeah, I wouldn't get too overexcited about elements. But yeah, you got the Charlotte taking the magic attacks well, and then physical attacks getting into my magic users, so I lost that one. Okay, here we have a mono-element team, mono-lightning, Cloud, Nivlu, and Federica. This team build is not as good because it doesn't fit any of the kind of the classic team builds. One team build that I like is 2 ranged attackers and then a tank. The tank moves forward, draws all the attacks, and then the 2 ranged characters attack from a distance. But here, we don't have anybody protecting each other. Where you have Cloud, maybe you would want a tank instead. But instead you just got 3 guys that are going towards each other, towards the front, attacking. Nobody's protecting each other. And then the range characters, they don't have great defense, so I don't see a bright future for this team here. I do want to emphasize that mono-element teams are fun, and if you're not serious about getting, like, top 100 arena, or you're not serious about doing really well in guild battle, you can play with mono-element teams to your heart's delight. Please do. But if you're serious about PvP, I wouldn't get into mono-element teams quite yet. And then my Sasayaki here, I think it's either this video or starting with the next one. I built her for slash and projectile resistance to go against Cloud, since he can do both of those things. And that was more important to do, rather than to find like a earth element tank. Muraga did fine against Cloud, but for this build, or the build in the next video, it was more about resistances. Okay, so we had the mono lightning team. They were buffing each other with the master abilities, maybe some vision cards, but it wasn't enough to overcome the poor choice of roles in that team. Okay, but here we got Cloud, Orlandu, and Megamont. This is a better team composition as far as roles, because you got the tank, and then you got the 2 attackers to bring up the rear. I do have less confidence going into here, even though I do have some element advantage with my Muraga versus their 2 lightning units. Again, the element is not going to be enough to bridge the gap, just for the pure power levels of this team that I'm facing. But the previous 2 fights, they were from Arena last week. The next 3 fights will be from Arena this week. And then the way that I put together this team, I had a tank and then a top tier damage dealer. So for the tank, I wanted to do tanking against both slash and then projectile. So Sasayaki is a great choice with that. She's got about 88 on both with like Odin and then the white guard vision card and all that stuff. And then I chose my toppest, tieriest damage dealer. When I was looking at that, I wasn't focused on elements. I was just looking at who's at EX jobs, do I want to go for physical or magic? I wanted to go for magic, turned out to be Helena. And she happened to be dark, so that is some nice synergy with Whisper. But it didn't really lead to my decision with the team building. And then, if your tank and then your top tier damage dealer are good enough, if they do good enough work, then you can kind of put any character you like in that 3rd slot. So I put in Muraga as kind of a second character, a kind of a secondary attacker, kind of a bruiser, maybe get some element advantage on Cloud. So yeah, when I do put together teams for PvP, top priority is kind of the team, the roles that I want to fill, and then I look at like who's high level, and then I think about like who I'm going to go against. Again, Whisper going against Slash and Projectile. And then finally I will think about elements, and then if like people happen to be the same element, that's a nice bonus, but it's never a starting point with me. Because the game is kind of not there yet. Like every element is not filled out enough that you can really build good teams of every element, so I wouldn't worry about it now, maybe in a year or 2. Alright, but I did lose that fight. Cloud was able to overcome the elemental disadvantage, take down my Muraga. Okay, last fight here. Here's an example of bad team building. Somebody succumbing to the allure of the mono-element team. But it kind of follows the same idea as the previous mono-element team, where you're using all these guys with the same element, they're buffing each other with the master abilities, maybe they're using vision cards, but all of those bonuses are not enough to overcome the deficiency of rolls. Here again, we have three characters that are not really meant to take hits. You don't have anybody protecting anybody, so it's like kill or be killed. And then also, the opposing team doesn't really have any top-tier damage dealers. So in kill or be killed, they're not going to be able to kill. Yeah, Federica, she's a good secondary attacker, good support attacker, like status effects, barrier break and stuff, but yeah, if you're like built for projectile resistance like my Sasayaki is here, not really much you can do. And then, even though I didn't build her specifically for magic resistance, still didn't take a lot of damage from Shidama because she had the shell from Divine Shelter. And then my top tier damage dealer, able to take down 2 guys in 1 hit with her limit break. So she's doing her job, Sasayaki's doing her job of tying up the enemy units. And then Muraga, he actually doesn't do anything in this fight because he wasn't able to get over in time. Because my tank and my attacker were able to do their job so well, and that I could take down the other team, which was poorly put together. Okay, so those are a few fights. In a nutshell, my priority when I'm building for PvP, first I think about like a team, the 3 roles that I want, and then I look at which characters that I have, which have maybe the highest levels or like EX jobs to fill those roles. And then I think about like who I'm going to go against. So I built my Sasayaki to go against Slash and Projectile. And then finally, I consider elements, and then if anybody happens to be the same element, then I can maybe think about vision cards, get some nice bonuses from that. But yeah, in the comments, let me know what your priorities are for building for PvP. I would be interested to hear about that. Alright, that'll do it for this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again. Take care.